So a man barricades Sacramento street to stop crime. Now you might think, he's just barricading out in front of his street because he doesn't want people going by his house. This is a business owner. This is a business owner taking matters into their own hands. It's a business owner that has reached out to the police and the city and any other governmental entity multiple times. He's gotten to that point, and we talk about this often here on News for Reasonable People, that at some point in time, people are going to start breaking down and taking matters into their own hands. This is one of those instances. That's what we're talking about today. A dude just got fed up and he's like, screw it. I don't care. I know it's a public street. I'm barricading it off. I'm not allowing any of these jerk-off criminals to come through my area where I'm trying to do business because we're trying to make a living here and you guys are mucking it all up because that's what criminals do. That's what we're talking about here today. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies. Why wouldn't I read stories like this? All right, let's get into it. So a man barricades Sacramento street to stop crime. A part of Railroad Drive in Sacramento is effectively closed to the public. I let them know, hey, the game is over. We're taking back our street, said Rich Eaton, who barricaded the road. One of the property owners in the block put up barricades and paid a security guard to, for the most part, only allow people in the street who work on the street. We've got instances of things going on here in Seattle where private companies are using the eco blocks to basically, I call it boxing people out of being able to park either their car or their RV, because these people just park their cars and their RVs and live wherever the F they want. Even though you've got a 72-hour rule where you need to move your car or your broken down RV or whatever it is, we've got situations where business owners are putting up these eco blocks, which are not legal, but they do stem the problem of people just parking willy-nilly wherever their vehicles that may or may not run further than, the 2-minute drive to get to wherever they're going. So you've got situations where this is going on a little bit lower key. This one is an interesting one because it's a public street that they've barricaded, and that's a hard no-go. I'm not for breaking the law. I am not for shutting down a public street. But after reading this story, I think more of this needs to go on because city leadership and, governmental entities need to know how bad it's getting. So what happens? Does the city go out and on these eco blocks, or the big concrete 1,000-pound blocks that get put out when they do a sweep and they don't want folks to come back and live on the sidewalk, on wherever it is, on the side of the street. They don't want people to park there permanently. So they put up these eco blocks. Is the city going to issue a citation for putting up an eco block? Is the city going to issue a citation for blocking off a street? Seems like a double standard, doesn't it? Seems like a double standard because having this wild, out of control lawlessness go on, that is also illegal. And those people should be in jail, but they're not. And so regular citizens who don't ordinarily break the law, they're forced into a situation where they're like, all right, I'm going to do something. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them know, hey, the game is over. We're taking back our street. We're going to barricade it up. We're only going to let people through that should be here. The rest of these yahoos, they should all be in jail, right? And yet they're not. And to me, what's happened is these cities they've lost control. They have utterly lost control. Here's some juicy news stories coming out of Sacramento. And by juicy, I mean not good for the residents there. Just some wild, out of control crime. So one of the property owners in the block put up barricades and paid a security guard to only allow people through that should be there. It was like walking through a working meth lab to get to work, said a Greenwerx employee. When you have to, do one of those employer questionnaires about your work experience at Greenwerx Employee, one of the comments as an employer that you would want to see is not that getting to work was like walking through a working meth lab. Those are not things that an employer wants to hear about from their working situation. That's a hard no-go, right? It's like going through a working meth lab. Not positive. One man did not want to be identified, but he said the 4 months that since he's worked on Railroad Drive have been a nightmare. There's days when they'll be parked 3 wide on the street and we can barely get by. They've had our gates completely blocked. I've pulled up and had employees waiting to get in because they were afraid to get out of their gate and punch in the code. These are people that are just absolutely scared to go into their workplace because the environment just outside their workplace is so bad. So this is just a business owner citizen who's basically said the city's dereliction of duty, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, has just come to a boiling point, and I'm just really begging for help. And he's going to take matters into his own hands. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because something has to happen. And if that means, if breaking the law by putting up a barricade on a public street, if it's that bad, then it just basically addresses the issue. Hey, it's that bad. Come arrest me because I can't get my employees to my own business. We're trying to make an honest living here. We're not trying to do the meth lab thing. That's what we're trying to avoid. Help us out. Help a brother out. I just want to run my business. That's literally what he's saying, right? At the time, his greatest concern was the closure of the nearby homeless shelter and the growing amount of encampments, trash, vandalism, and long-term parking. But he said the problems had gotten exponentially worse. Literally a week ago from this spot to there, he's pointing something out, all the way down and around the corner, there were 57 motorhomes and trailers parked, the employee said. So I went down to downtown Seattle, the SoDo district, and that's kind of the same type area. You've got some light industrial, I guess is what you would say. You've probably got some heavy industrial too, but it sounds like this is some kind of, it's some kind of work plant, whatever it is. It's a big shop. It's got whatever. It's got the fence out in front. You've got a gate code so you can get in. And, this is same areas in a lot of cities. And from this standpoint, where you've got 57 vehicles, this is a lot like the SoDo district in Seattle, south of the Dome, south of the King Dome. And guess what? That's where they put in all the eco blocks, because what happens is all of these folks, they live on the streets, and guess what? That makes the areas unsafe because they bring in their criminal element. They bring in their drugs, their prostitution, stolen goods, fencing, stolen goods, just all that stuff. And crime goes up in the areas. Everybody knows that is the deal. I mean, it just happens, right? And people want to say, you got to let them live wherever. Some places it gets worse, and it sounds like this guy's area, it got worse. So Eaton said city officials have been largely unresponsive despite posted signs prohibiting parking overnight. All the signs that government is putting up right now have no impact on anything, do they? Because the criminals are literally running around shooting each other because there's no real enforcement. There's no real enforcement. People are just running around willy-nilly doing whatever they want. And it's coming down to private citizens to do what they need to do to keep their businesses safe. So and he also sued the city of Sacramento earlier this year, as you do. What'd you do today? Lodged a big lawsuit against the city. How come? Well, they're incompetent. All right. Makes sense. Good luck with that. So we're past this being a homeless issue. This is straight crime, Eaton said. Eaton said last Saturday someone stole surveillance cameras from the roof of one of his buildings, so he stepped in to keep watch. The prostitution, the stolen cars, people meeting on the street at 3 a.m., Eaton said. He said what he saw was the final straw. I paid some homeless people some money so that they would leave. I fed them, I took care of them, and helped them. And when Railroad Drive was cleared, I put up barriers, Eaton said. Eaton said he is aware he barricaded a public street and the issues of doing so. And I get that too. But I think at some point in time, you got to take a stance. And unfortunately, I mean, it's not like there's probably a large amount of traffic going through this area anyway. I mean, it's not like you're talking a major arterial here, right? The reason that this criminal element is doing this in this area is because it's probably a little bit out of the way. But this guy's got to be able to run his business. And he's saying, yep, no can do. We're barricading off the street. Eaton acknowledged the fact that he's doing he's blocking the public roadway. This is not in any way against the homeless or homeless people in need. We are fighting the criminal element, and the city refuses to help us. I think most cities like this, they have literally given up. They're like, I don't know what to do. We're not in law enforcement. We defunded the police, and we can't hire enough cops to make sense of this. I was at a bodybuilding show this weekend. Yep, I know. Random, super random. I enjoy bodybuilding contests. I think they're interesting. You see all the hard work people put in. Now, the whole getting super tan, you get that spray tan, and then not drinking water for a day, dehydrating yourself so you just really pop. Yeah, that part to me, the whole starving yourself for weeks on end, with the right combination of lean protein and just a little bit of carbohydrates and just a scooch of fat, that whole thing to me, difficult. But that's the price you pay to look good. At the bodybuilding contest I went to, which was the Emerald Cup, that's the big one here in Seattle, we're not much of a mecca for bodybuilding here in the Pacific Northwest. It's not sunny enough for people to have natural tans, so people aren't outside. So there isn't a real big bodybuilding community here at all. But what was interesting is that the Seattle Police Department had a recruiting booth at the bodybuilding show. And to call it bodybuilding is not accurate. How about calling it a fit expo? How about that? Because you got bikini models, people who work out and look good. So Seattle Police Department had a recruiting deal there. I thought that was super interesting. I kind of looked at them and went, okay, all right, this is my weekend, so I'm kind of off the clock. Otherwise, I'd go up and talk to him and see how it was going. Because the entire time I was there, and I did keep a notice, I didn't see a single person really engage with the recruiting efforts. And that's kind of just how that's going. So difficult, right, for the police because they've been defunded. And then we wonder, why is the criminal element just doing their own thing? And regular citizens are forced to do something as drastic as barricading a public street. What are you doing? Barricading the street. Isn't that illegal? Yeah, we're doing it anyway. So this is the business owner again. He's saying we are approaching $170,000 in damages. It just tweaked a nerve. 170 grand. That's a lot. Broken windows, broken fencing, stolen stuff. Graffiti, you probably name it. There is no law enforcement on Railroad Drive. The criminals know it. We know it. They know they're going to come down here and deal drugs, prostitution, daily, nightly. It has all stopped Monday afternoon, Eaton said, because he blocked it off. He just took matters into his own hands and said, yep, nope, no more traffic. It's what we're doing. And now we're reading this news story. And these are the stories that I believe really need to get out there because a lot of people are like, it's okay. It's not that bad. Some of those crimes actually went down. Yeah, the ones that we decriminalized and the ones with the whole pandemic where everybody was sitting at home looking out their windows. You think the crime statistics might have gotten tweaked a little bit there during the whole stay home 15 days to stop the curve? That whole thing? God, that was ridiculous, wasn't it? So he hopes the city can sit down with him and come to a solution. What on earth would that be? Hey, crime is out of control. What are you going to do? Yeah, we're working on it. We're going to have a meeting. We're going to have some planning. We're going to bring in an auditor. We're going to talk about it a lot. And are you going to hire any more cops? Oh, no, too hard. Very difficult and expensive. Instead, we're just going to have private citizens barricade public streets because looks like it's working. Looks like your crime's down. How ridiculous, right? Dude's got to barricade a street in Sacramento, in California. Now posted on the barriers is an order from code enforcement to stop blocking the street by Monday. Hey, you can't block this street. That's illegal. As you've just got, chicks selling their bodies and guys dealing dope and just craziness up and down the street. You can't have barricades here. That's illegal. We got to draw the line here somewhere. Barricades, no go. Prostitution, meth, crack, they're okay. They're all right. But barricades, hard no go. I don't know. Where do things go from here? Where does something go from here? Because this guy, he's not going to be able to get much help. So he's either got to make the hard choice to maybe move out. Maybe his business is, it's located in Sacramento because he's got some kind of business. Not really sure what kind of business he runs, but it's a business that's specific locally to Sacramento. Could be, don't really know. So a lot of people say, well, just move. Well, oftentimes your business is so entrenched in an area, like selling real estate in an area. You just can't pick it up and move because then you're competing in somebody else's backyard. That 20 years that you ran your business somewhere else, somebody else has already been running a business there. So you can't just pick these things up and move, especially if it's a big manufacturing or, something along those lines. Business doesn't really work like that. So that's why this guy is going to the lengths, and the extreme, nature of what he's doing. Bring in the barricades. We're barricading it off. Kind of like right at the beginning of 𝐏𝐞𝐸 when it started off as Chaz and, we're not an autonomous zone. We're an Occupy protest. Right at the beginning of that. What did city of Seattle do? Yeah, in their infinite wisdom, they dropped off a bunch of barricades and they let we don't want to have any borders group, Black Lives Matter, put up borders on their little fiefdom of 𝐏𝐞. Literally, first thing they did. You got to put up borders. We need a guard at that border. That was one of the big stories, right? There's armed guards at the borders at 𝐏𝐞. Now, they were really intersections and they were really just concrete barricades the city had brought in. Somebody authorized that. Who authorized that? I want to know. Because one of the reasons, one of the things I was there for when 𝐏𝐞 was taken down was Seattle Department of Transportation came in and they did a dry run to start pulling the barricades out. And that's how the police knew exactly how much resistance there was going to be to when they cleared out 𝐏𝐞. There was some resistance, but when you bring in a couple of 100 police officers, that resistance gets mitigated pretty quickly. Yeah, it does. And it was a beautiful thing to see. So, all right. I hope this guy gets somewhere with the city of Sacramento. Man, my hopes are not high. Like by that, I mean, it's not going anywhere. This is just an example of a private citizen having to take matters into his own hands because his local governmental entity is overwhelmed. They got overrun. There's, unless you do some drastic change up in this area, this is what you got. This is what you're dealing with. So until local governments start to take a real hard crackdown on crime, Seattle is trying to, but it's going to take a while, if ever. And, some of the battles that you're trying to overcome was that, everything just kind of got let go during the whole coronavirus thing. Empty all the jails out. We can't have people in jail. They might spread the coronavirus. Well, now they're spreading crime and it's just gotten wildly out of control and we all know it. And citizens, forced to take matters into their own hands, barricade up. This is what we're doing. That's crazy, isn't it? That is not reasonable. Reasonable is running your own business with the backdrop of public safety, meaning a police officer drives by your street every now and then, checks up on you, makes sure you're doing okay, and then drives on past because there's nothing going on. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. It's not. This poor guy. I'll keep you posted if I'm able to find out what the follow-up was to this guy's barricade solution. All right. That's it for me. I'll catch up with you soon. Talk then. Bye for now.